We're in. We're in. We're on. We in and on. So yeah, we're here a little early. So people coming in, blessings and thank you.
Hold down the fort, gentlemen.
You got it, bro. You got it, man. Oh. Yeah. What's it? Let's see. Hold on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. People starting to come in. Just starting to watch this. Welcome to Brotherhood of Kings live. Yes, yes, and yes. Excited for tonight, man. Tonight we talk about the armor. The armor. And everybody wears armor. Everybody got a little armor on. Key thing is, are you wearing the armor or is the armor wearing you? They're wearing you. Hmm? So we're going to chop it up. We're going to talk about it. Yeah. All right. Ding.
So, P, we live, huh?
We're live, man.
All right, so I'm going to throw a question out to you two gentlemen first and foremost.
Let's go. Bring it, bruv.
We're talking about armor.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you make a distinction between an armor and a mask?
Yes, I would. I think for me, a mask is it's more mobile, so I can switch the mask a lot quicker, right? So I can put a mask on for whatever scenario I'm in. Like that's one of my old go tos. The armor to me is it's on constantly. It's like it's in a way it's like my shield. Yeah, that's that's the distinction I can think of right now off the rip.
Yeah, because for me, it's like the mask is the persona we hide behind, and the armor are the ways we protect ourselves. So for me, and again, we'll jump into this a little bit. When I think about the armor, ways of being that I protect myself from getting hurt, and the mask is that fake persona that I want people to see. You know, and it's actually in a way it's kind of doing the same thing. It's protecting myself by hiding behind, hiding behind something.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think there is a slight distinction between the mask and the armor, but both of them keep us from expressing who we truly are.
True words, man. True words. Yeah. Jermaine, what is it for you, bro? What's thoughts coming for you, man?
Yeah, I agree, bro. But I'm gonna take it a little deeper than that, man. So the mask for me is like you said, P. I can switch it up, but the key is I create them, right? So there are certain circumstances I put myself in, or I find myself in, that I want you to believe something different from the way that I feel, right? So I'll put the mask on that I'm a great businessman. I put the mask on that I'm super confident, you know?
Yeah.
But really what it is behind that is I feel like I'm not a good businessman. I'm not really confident, right? And that's that switch up thing. And depending on where I'm at, man, I can create a mask on the fly, bro. You know, I might be around some people who don't look like me, right? So I'll put the mask on that, you know, I'm not a dangerous guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm cool to be around. You know, I can talk like y'all. I can code switch. I can do all of that. Right?
Yeah.
That's the mask. Because authentically, what I really am is just a kid from Queens who grew up in the 80s, and I got a particular slang and a particular way I speak. That's just the way it is. And in some circles, that might feel threatening to some people, right? And then with the armor, that's why I love this armor idea, right? The armor goes deeper than that, bro. The armor, if I look at the date that my armor was created,
Yeah.
bro, I'm gonna go back to like 1983 on you, right?
Mm.
Like 9 years old when my armor was created, right? It might have evolved over time the way it looks, what it's protecting might change. But the reality is, I learned how to create that mask somewhere a long time ago, bro. I'm not mask, I'm sorry, that armor a long time ago, right? And it's because maybe I was afraid in a situation. Maybe I was experiencing some type of trauma, grief, loss. You know, I lost somebody in my life, didn't know how to handle it, throw up that armor, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but you know, a lot of times, for me, it was like, real men don't cry. So, bro, if you sitting up here crying, you need to suck that up.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to name a whole bunch of names that I've heard around why boys cry, right? And so, what that armor protects has been protecting me, bro, more than 3/4 of my life, right? So then the question is it still serving me today as a grown man, right? And what is it protecting now? You know, is the armor way too thick? Because when I made it at 6 years old or 7 years old, I thought it needed to be this thick.
Right.
But really now as an adult, those kind of safety issues don't happen. So it really just needs to be about this thick, and I need to turn it off and on, so that I could be in my authentic space. So we're gonna go deep with this, bro. This
Yeah.
goes a lot deeper.
It goes a lot deep. And yo, bro, thank you for saying that, man, because like I'm recognizing, like saying specifically about when it was created. Because like after a conversation we had yesterday, like I was going deep, and I go down the rabbit hole, man. I'm like, bro, my thoughts go crazy, bro. And I was like thinking about like, well, wow, when did this created? And Jermaine, you hit it on the head. My mind got created for me when this dude, Mr. Macy, died when I was 7. Like he was my shield. He was my support system, man. Like, my parents' house, my house was in chaos. Parents getting divorced, and my dad, you know, uh, beating up my mom and whatnot. Mr. Macy's place was the safe haven. So when he passed, that's when I started. It was like my armor was my defender, and it's like you said, like it defended me until I grew up, and the armor almost didn't fit. Like it was almost hindering me. Like it's hindering me now. I failed to acknowledge what it was, and then what I can do to like really have it support me rather than like defend or protect like some wounded part of me, man. It's power. It's potent, man.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought that up, Jermaine, because I can pinpoint exactly when I put my armor on, and I was 6 years old, and we talked about this at the meeting Saturday. But it occurred when, at 6 years old, I didn't know my dad, right? My dad left when I was really, really young. And so my mom had to take me and one of my brothers and one of my sisters to live with my dad, who I didn't know at 6 years old. Now, my mom was the world to me. My mom was God to me, right? So when my mom takes me to live with my dad and his mom, who was my grandmother, who was the grandmother from hell, in my 6-year-old little brain, it's like, okay, the person I love more than anything in the world is abandoning me. She's leaving me with people I don't know. Something must be wrong with me that she's leaving me here. Her final words to me when she was leaving, when she was dropping me off, was, I needed to do good in school to get back to her. It was in that moment that I made a decision that whatever it took, I was going to be smart because that was the way to get back to the woman that I loved.
Mm.
And so my armor became my intellect. It was how I navigated through life, being smart.
Mm.
Being smart, thinking that that's what would help people love me. Because it was like that was a condition my mom put on me, that I needed to be smart to be loved.
Mm.
See, that's what a 6-year-old mind will do. It creates these realities in our heads, in my head, that in order to be loved, I had to be smart.
Mm.
And so that was my way of protecting myself. Started at 6 years old.
Bruh. Bruh, when you this call that we have is really the nightcap, the after party from the Saturday call. So I gotta say, Coach, when you dropped that on us yesterday, bro, that shifted things, man. That first of all, that was a powerful realization for you to have. So thank you for thank you for sharing that and trusting us. First of all, and second, brother, I'm curious, man. When you came to that realization, what was like? What was there a shift for you? Like, did something open up for you, or was it just more like what was it like for you, man?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the safe space that we've created,
Yeah.
that allowed me to be that vulnerable.
Mm.
I had absolutely no fear. I didn't try to shut it off. I knew that I was in a space where the brothers would support and not judge or condemn, and I could just be real.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, as I was reflecting on that armor and recognizing when it started, what happened was I allowed myself to feel that sadness.
Mm.
That sadness of having to be smart to be loved in my little head.
Mm.
So it was really just what the tears were about was just sadness. It was like I just allowed myself to sort of grieve that little boy that at that time thought that's what he needed to do to be loved.
Mm.
And so intellectually, I've recognized that was the. There's a guy named Tim Kelly wrote a book called Living Your Divine Purpose or Living on Purpose or something like that. And he said this. He said, every human being has what he calls a sacred wound. There's a sacred wound. And what happens is there's something that causes us in that moment to believe we're unworthy or unlovable. And that sacred wound doesn't have to be some traumatic sexual abuse. It can be an instant where your dad says something that he was disappointed in you, and you just make up in your mind that you're not worthy, you're not lovable. And it's something that just, it can be just something that quick. But that sacred wound, when we can identify that sacred wound and heal that wound, it frees us up, right? Not the be all do all to healing, but when we can identify that sacred wound, we've laid the foundation for finding our true purpose. And actually, that's the name of the book, True Purpose, actually. And so when I read that book, I recognized that my sacred wound was that experience with my mom at 6 years old. Because that's what set everything in motion for me. The abandonment, the I'm not good enough, people who love you leave you, all of that. That's in that sacred wound space, in that event. And so I did a lot of work around that, and I recognized it. But yesterday when we were talking, I think for the first time, I just allowed myself to feel what that little boy felt at 6.
Yeah.
So that was the difference.
Man, thank you for that. Welcome to the viewers of the live. As you're tuning in, tap in and leave a comment on what is armor for you. What does armor mean for you? What is it? What is it? What does it represent? And right now we're in this question. Bless up, Gray Jones. Dang, he said, dang, this is right on point for me. I just woke up yesterday recognizing my underlying feeling of unworthiness. Yes, sacred. Yo, bruh. And this is what, man, thank you for that, Gray. And this is the piece that I appreciate that we have this sacred and trusting space to really explore, because these sacred wounds, man, they have an impact on us in a major ways, man. And I say, when I say that, like, specifically, it's like they could be leading us or steering us in ways that are creating something unconscious in our life. It could, listen, and it could be good or bad, or actually, it's going to reflect a lot of things, because, Coach, you having that intelligence has produced many books. You being on many stages. Yet, and at the same time, it's like it also, I think, by bringing light to that sacred wound, it's nourishing it, right? Healing it, and then it amplifies what you've already done. You know, it's very interesting, man. Very interesting.
But yeah, Paul, we talk about, the shadow and the gold.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And for those of you who are watching, the stuff we're talking about, it's deep work. So we're really glad you're tuning in and diving into this conversation. And if you're unfamiliar with some of these terms, forgive me, but the shadow is that part of ourselves that we suppress, repress, and deny and don't acknowledge. And it's actually running our lives in the background, and we're unaware of it. So for me, again, having that wound, before I was willing to heal that wound, I was inauthentic, I guess is the best way to put it, because the armor that we're talking about, for me, that armor was that my intellect. That's what I hid behind. Mm-hmm. So that sacred wound, again, as painful, as difficult as it is, I honestly believe the reason it's a sacred wound is because it brings us a gift.
True.
If we're willing to look deeply enough. And we got to be willing to do the work to get to that place, to that gold piece, that piece where the sacredness comes from.
Yeah.
Because again, as you just mentioned, Paul, if not for that wound, I would have never become a writer, a speaker, a coach. Those things that would have been beyond my radar.
Yeah.
But now, as a result of doing my inner work, being willing to look at and shine light in those dark places that sometimes we're afraid to do, that's what sets us free.
True words, bro.
And that's what the work is about. Freedom.
True words, man. Bless up, man. Brother Andrew, thank you for checking in. Thank you. Coach, thank you for that comment, man. And also, people watching, if you have questions, please leave them in the chat. And any comments as we're talking, leave them in the chat. Hey, Jermaine, I want to check in with you, man, because when we were facilitating that circle yesterday, what were some of the things that you were observing and seeing as men were unraveling and opening up? Like, what were some of the things that were coming up for you as you were witnessing this, man?
Yeah, bro. It's the differences, man. One of the beautiful things about doing this work is that it's very specific to me, right? So we could have the same experience, and the way I process it will be different from you, even if it's very small and nuanced, right? And, the exercise itself of processing, what does this armor mean to me? What does it look like was a really good question, right? So when I imagine something protecting me, what does that look like? And really processing that, and then articulating what that is to a group of people, right? There's healing in that process by itself, right?
Yeah.
And then to have to claim out loud this armor is protecting me from. Finish the sentence, right? So you can imagine how deep, if I'm willing to go there, if the room is safe enough for me to really take it there, like what Coach is talking about, that safety piece that gives me some authority, if you will, or some extra courage to really go to them places that I might hide, repress, or deny in other spaces. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
man.
inherently, the shadow piece and the gold piece, they're not negative or positive, right? And even the way we process trauma, right? It has both aspects in it.
Yeah.
It's the way that I process it. From what place am I processing that? Like we talked last week, and I did an analogy about going back to my elementary school, right? And what that was like for me as
That's
an
right.
adult, right? Yeah.
Yeah, man. That was a great analogy.
Yeah, and when you put that same analogy to it, the
Yeah.
question then becomes, if I see the same thing as the 40-year-old me, how might it be different the way I process that? I might still be pissed. I might still want to, do something to somebody or whatever the case may be. But the way that I process it will be in a much more grounded, secure, mature place. So here's a question, bro. We're talking about armor. We're talking about shadow and gold. We're talking about all of those traumas and working through them. The question is, when I realize that I have this armor on, what's the process that I use to remove it or sit it down for a period of time to give myself enough time to work on that?
Bruh.
Right? That's the deeper question to it, right?
Bruh.
And even with Coach, if we asked you that right now, man, since you put it all on the line, bro, what would it take? How do you put that armor down so that you're able to do that deeper work?
Specifically for me.
Specifically for you, bro.
So
Great question, bro.
I'm gonna tie it in with what Andrew's asking. He says, "What specific steps can men take to get past the strongholds, and blind spots in our lives?" And I think that's a really powerful question. And we talked about armor, and so again, my armor had always been my intellect, hiding behind my intellect. And whenever I had an issue, even today, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to research it. I'm going to study it, right? I'm going to read a book. I'm going to go. Well, what I found was, and this was one of the turning points in my transformational journey. I read in this book, this guy said this: the only way to heal is to create an interpersonal bridge with another human being. Now, when I read that, I immediately recognized that was an issue for me, because what I had always done in the past was try to figure it all out in my head.
I can relate.
Didn't have the courage to do it vulnerably in front of someone else. The armor was too strong. So I would just rationalize, analyze, and figure it all out up here. So it wasn't until I gained the courage to create that interpersonal bridge with another human being. The first step for me was gaining the courage to go to therapy. It was the first time I allowed myself to create an interpersonal bridge with another human being.
Wow.
And it literally changed my life because it allowed me to look at me. And I was fortunate that the person that I found was just absolutely perfect. And I know that's why I believe there's no accidents in a perfect universe.
Yeah.
When we get on this path, there'll be some divine synchronicities that will guide us to where we need to go next. And so for me, this person was just absolutely perfect because she could see right through me. She could see right through me, because one of the first things I did in therapy was she asked me to share some of the things I experienced in my childhood. And I possibly had the worst childhood you could ever imagine. Literally, it was that bad. And when I was sharing with her, I had this big smile on my face. And she said, Michael, why are you smiling? Those things were terrible. Those things were horrible. No child should have to go through that. And my response was, but I'm great. I'm okay. Now think about that. I'm in a therapist's office in a lot of pain. And I'm telling the therapist that I'm okay. That's the armor, right? Because I was trying to explain to her what I had learned about depression and childhood trauma. And I was explaining, I had all the words right. I'm talking to this lady and she's like looking at me like, yeah, right. But then this is when the magic happened. And this is how perfect this therapist was. After me sharing my rationalization, she said, Michael, let me ask you this. How would you feel if those same things happened to your son? And when she said that, it's like I got out of my head, went into my heart, and allowed myself to feel the pain that I had been carrying for years. But it wasn't until I took my attention off of myself and thought about my son that I allowed myself to feel that pain. And when I did, it was like the floodgates just opened. And years of repressed and suppressed pain started coming out. Obviously, I'm crying uncontrollably for about 10 seconds. And then I went, what did you do? How did you do that? I started rationalizing and analyzing again. She said, Mike, I didn't do anything. She said, you have years and years of suppressed pain that you need to let go of. And you can't do it in your head. And that's how I started the process of letting that armor down, getting out of my intellect and getting into my heart. You know, they say the longest journey a man will ever take is the 6 inches between his head and his heart.
That's right. That's right, bro.
That was the journey for me. And so that for me was how I was able to begin this transformational emotional healing journey.
Brother, that jump, man. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, coach. Man. Wow. This question right here, like I'm thinking about Jermaine, great question, and man, so this is something is so this is all synchronous to me because like I was having a conversation with a gentleman this morning, and we were talking about armor. I was talking about actually the circle that we had yesterday, and Jermaine, what you asked was one of his questions. It was like, what do we do, or what gets to happen so that Black men, like he was asked specifically about Black men, get to learn to put down the armor and do the work. And we started having a conversation around, well, it's about the right space. Like, and then the question was, well, what's the right space? And I think it was like part of it is what Coach was alluding to is that, okay, it's a space where people can ask the questions and curious questions to get a person to shift their mindset, right? To be able to say, to still, even though I put the mask off, Coach, what I was hearing you say, even though you took the mask off, you still had a mask or the armor off. You still had an armor on to say, hey, and I'm great. Like you're talking about horrific stuff. And you're like, yeah, I'm fine though. It wasn't until she said she put it in a different perspective that all of a sudden it hit you. And that's the space, right? That's the space where, first of all, I'm judging you had to trust this person to be able to hear what they're saying, right? be able to say, okay, I'm gonna allow myself to open up. I'm gonna allow myself to really like be seen and heard, so that I can get to that space. And listen, that space is tough to get to for men of color, man. Because most of the spaces that we have, if you think about it, and this is what I was talking with this gentleman about today, is most of the spaces, as soon as a man of color gets vulnerable, it's usually it usually can become a liability. It's like, oh man, listen, man, look, you heard this cat was just talking about, man. Let me tell you this situation. What this cat said about this, yo, man. And then all of a sudden, now they're like, oh, this cat's weak. No, now this cat is never gonna take the armor off, right? It's like, it's really interesting. I'm so happy that we have this space to be able to even talk about this. I want to pick up on some comments, right? And then I guess like Ralph, check in. Well, we'll get to Ralph's question. I want to see if we have any other things with that. I'm also seeing Ralph Sims. Ralph is saying, when I have to put my armor down, I've experienced being fragile, unsure, cautious, exposed. All of this is internal. The biggest one is fear, frozen. Yeah, frozen emotions against reality. Bless up. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, man. Yeah. So,
I'll tell you
yeah.
another thing too, man, that happens, and it's unconscious, right? And I think Coach said it without saying it, right?
Mhm.
Is that oftentimes I can get in a space where for that 10 seconds that he had, right, of that realization, oh, what if it was your son, right? What happens is, for that 10 seconds, that piece of armor I can set to the side, and unconsciously within seconds, I'll grab another piece of armor and put it on, right?
True words, bro.
Yeah,
True words.
because
Kid.
what happens is I'm uncomfortable in the space, even when I'm comfortable in the space, because I've lived in it for too long.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So yeah, even that, bro, and it becomes unconscious when we put it back on. Oftentimes, I don't even know I did it, right? Which is why the process of setting the armor down is truly, truly important. I have to be intentional with it. It's not enough for you to say to me, hey man, listen, man, this happened, put the armor down for a second. And then I'm like, all right, and I'm looking at you, and I set that joint aside for a second, and I sit back, because subconsciously something in my body is not going to let me stay in that space, right?
Wow.
And it's that intention. I am now going to remove this armor and get vulnerable with this person. So when I feel my need to grab another piece of armor, I'm going to sit in that resistance, bro. I'm not going to let it just do it unconsciously. And even if it happens without me seeing it, because sometimes that shadow would do that, right?
What?
That piece of me, it'll do it without me knowing it's doing it. And the invitation is that self-awareness to realize, oh man, damn, I just put another, all right, let me intentionally set this down. So the criteria around what that has to be is important, and the intention behind doing it is extremely important.
Yes, brother. Thank you, King. Bless up.
Yeah.
Ooh, thank you.
And let me put this out too. There's only two things that'll cause a person to want to change. One is pain, and the other is what I call divine discontent. It's just an inner feeling, an inner knowing that something's just off, okay? For me personally, I was in so much pain when I went. I didn't have a choice. It was either get help or die. When you get to that space, I think you're more likely to be vulnerable because you want to alleviate that pain, even though you may not know how. But the challenge is, and the fear is, when I felt that hurt, the reason that I only allowed it for 10 seconds or so is because I was afraid if I allowed myself to feel it, I couldn't stop it.
Oh.
And so you put on another piece.
I pulled on another piece so I wouldn't feel that. So that piece, again, once for me, is trying to understand it. That's my that's my armor, trying to understand it. So again, I grab that piece. Okay, what did you just do? explain to me what happened in my brain that you were able to get me to turn my brain off. And I started, I'm rationalizing, man, big time. That's my armor. It's just going, man. It's my defense mechanism. That's what I've always hid behind. But for those of you who are watching, just know when we get into the heart, especially at the beginning, it's scary. It's freaking terrifying. But you got to feel the fear and do it anyway. Because here's what I know with absolute certainty. It's never as bad as you think it is.
Yeah.
It's never as bad as you see. For me, again, my fear was I wouldn't be able to turn that pain off. But when I did allow myself to feel it and heal it, I was able to let most of it go.
Thank you, brother. It's interesting, man, because that feeds into what Andrew's question is here. How do you reconcile getting out of your head and into your heart when, as a man of substance and color, we put on mask and armor to survive in a culture that is designed to suppress us?
He's actually answering the question in the
absolutely. That's exactly what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Because if you deconstruct that, right, it is society dictating who we are designed to be, right? Or in my case, who I am designed to be, right? And so the best thing that I could do, right, is go against what that is, because it's not designed for the betterment of me or the health of me or the success of me. That whole thing is designed so someone else can profit or be better as a result of me not, right? And so the invitation here is to not allow that to win. And those are my words, because that's how I feel when it hits me, is that if I conform to that, where I stay hidden, I stay defensive, I stay with these masks and this armor, then whatever you set up for me to be before I was born has already beat me, right? And I can't do that, bro. I can't, nothing in my body is going to let me stay in that box. So I feel jittery even saying it, right? So for me, the best thing that I could do is to find a place that I could test this out at, right? The BKC is set up so that men can try that stuff on. Just see what it feels like, bro. You know, how many times have we said to a man who is experiencing sadness, instead of trying to cheer him up, we say, hey, bro, would you mind if we sit here with you? If we experience this sadness with you for a few minutes, right? Because we don't want to push away from it, bro. We want to embrace it. We want the energy to flow in us, process it, and then leave when it's ready to leave. Not because it makes everybody in the room uncomfortable because I'm sad, right? And so to top it all off, bro, do what they don't want you to do. Do what's in the best interest of your own health, your family's health, your community's health, your culture's health, and get up out of that, right? Find your true, authentic self and let that be the beacon for other men to do the same thing. And miraculous things will happen, bro.
I say. Thank you for that, bro.
Yeah, Paul, if I can throw this out too, because this is a big piece. The healing process is all about safety, right? Being in environments where we feel safe and secure enough to be that vulnerable. And there are some people that question whether or not someone of a different skin tone may not be able to hear me, feel me, empathize with me. As men of color, I believe it's important that we have people that look like us to be in that space to create that safety. At the same time, for me, the pain was so great, it had absolutely nothing to do with the person's color. She happened to be a white woman, my therapist, who, again, I credit her with opening that door for me because she could see me.
Yeah.
And I don't think she saw me as a black guy. She saw me as a guy in a lot of pain.
Yes, bro.
And she knew I needed to get to that pain. And she knew how to guide me to that. So one of the challenges we have as men of color is to find a space where we feel safe enough to be honest, to be real. I've had conversations with black men in my work where they were more comfortable with white people than black people because they had experienced a lot of trauma from black people. So this healing process, it's an internal process that race is obviously a big issue, but it's really when we're thinking about, for example, as Andrew was sharing, culturally, we know the externals, right? We know all of that, but that's still in our heads. We're still thinking about, okay, so how is society doing this to me? But the reality is, until we go here and heal in here, we have to be willing to look past that.
Yeah.
Think about it energetically. Mm-hmm. Because we're energetic beings. So energetically, what does that feel like when I say culture's holding me down or culture doesn't respect, whatever? But it's about the energy. What's the feeling? What's the energy in me that I need to process? Because that's where it all starts. Mm-hmm. The energy, how I feel about what I'm thinking. And that's where the healing comes from.
Yeah. Man, it's so, and Coach, I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm appreciating all this. And I want us to be aware, because, we've been doing this work, that sometimes the first step is to feel. That is the first step. And coming back to Jermaine, what you're saying, Jermaine, when you said that, bro, I was reflecting back on all the calls that we've had in the BKC, even men's work, with men that experience and touch their sadness or touch an emotion, and they're quick to want to cover it up and mask it up. And then thinking about the experience of those men actually being in a space of other men and feeling it, having that space. And it was for most of them, bro, and I know you can remember, you remember this too, like it was their first time having that space, bro. Mm-hmm. And that was the beginning of it all. Because, like, listen, Andrew brings up a great point. There is a society that's looking to suppress and depress who you are. And that will have you put that mask up thinking that you can't show anybody that. And then as soon as you open it up, again, that next level, that scoop is feeling what you're feeling, because there's power in that. We got some comments. I just want to check in on some comments, and then there's another question from Andrew. People that are watching, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Please leave comments, questions that you have. Some comments we got from Gray. Gray was talking about, like, 3 strangers he ran into last week, encountering their armor and knowing they're nowhere near knowing it exists. Brother, yeah, man, and it's happening a lot out here, Gray. And I feel you when you say, or when I'm reading what you say about you felt bad and defeated. And then coming to another thing, Gray, I just put in an email. He's asking, what's the BKC? Yeah, Brotherhood of Kings Collective, bruv. I put the email in there. Yes, sir. Yeah, you're right. Listen, right now, invite men to these Sunday lives, man, so we can have these conversations, so they can chime in. That's our intention for doing these calls, so that more men know that this exists. More men of color know that this exists specifically, so we can work through our things, so we can become even better. That's the key piece. We got another question from Andrew. Bless up to you, King. Thank you for bringing these questions and these queries. And Gray was also asking, how do we market the benefit of taking this journey? So we're going to address that too. Gray, stay tuned with us, man. Andrew's asking, how many mentally professional schools train therapists to value a person's culture and to see their humanity? Oh, man, Andrew, you getting in, man. You going in. I judge few, man, if any.
Yeah, man, to that question, I don't know what the answer to that is, right? Yeah. I mean, to be truthful and honest with you. And I will tell you this, that one of the core values that we hold dear in our men's group is simply taking personal responsibility, right? For all of the impacts that I have, all of the choices that I make, and that's whether intended or unintended impacts, right? And so if I think of that broadly, it's easy to put that on the world or to put that on the community. You know, that's easy. But what I want for men is to begin pulling that into themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so what does that mean for me to take full responsibility for me? Now, Coach alluded to this earlier. This is a scary place to be, bro. There's nothing about, that's why we call it men's work. This is not men's play. This is not men having a good time. You know what I mean? This is men's work. And it really, really takes a level of commitment, of tenacity, of hustle in many, many ways, and courage, bro. And I'm gonna tell you what we do best. What we do best is supporting men in achieving what it is that they want for their own personal preference, purpose, and mission, right? And so, to me, whether there's a whole lot of mental professionals that know what this is, I know that my job is to teach as many or to support as many as I can, because the trickle effect that happens from 14 men being in the room, right? From 20 people of color being in the room and learning this technology and this way of being and this way of respecting and processing and communicating with each other, bro, there's not a mental health professional that could deal with something like that.
Bro.
We'll all get together for that same purpose, bro.
Brother, can I say I gotta mention this thing. At this event I was at tonight, I got a question on because I was talking about the work that we do, like men's work. And one of the people in the audience was asked, well, you know, what are your thoughts about like working with therapists? And I said, you know, listen, it can be used in tandem. And I spoke of only my experience. I can't speak of anyone else. But like, you know, me working solely with therapy, it was a lot of just talking, right? And hey, man, how are we moving through this? So, like, listen, I have a therapist I've been working with for 4.5 years, and she's different though. She's a therapist, but she does like energy work, crystals, sound healing, all this stuff. Like, I think she's from like Galactic's number 5 or some shit, some faraway galaxy. But I was explaining to this woman that asked a question. I said, listen, it's one thing to work with a therapist. It's another thing to be in a group of men that are able to hold space for a person to do their inner work, a space for them to be able to see. And I see and I'm coming to Andrew's question here. I think it's important for men of color to be in space with men of color, because there are cultural things I judge that only they will understand. And yes, you want to be in men's circles where it's like, because men themselves have their concerns and issues, right? And I think culturally, being in that space of like, listen, this man looks like me. He knows a similar situation I have and what I've been experiencing. So it's going to be a little easier for me to be able to let go, set myself free. Because again, a therapist is like, in my judgment, a therapist can be very much like doctors, right? And why I say that is like, you go into a doctor and say, for example, doctor, I got a cough. Okay, I'm going to go through these steps that I learned in training. Okay? And it's like a one size fits all, because I'm going in and say, hey, doctor, I got a cough. Now, when I'm going into the doctor, be like, hey, you know what, man, I had a cough, man. I had this thing going on in my throat. This was going on over the weekend. You know, I had some Hennessy or what have you. Like all this stuff, like I'm going in more detailed. Now the doctor's able to change the view. They're able to change the perspective. I see that as men's work. Men's work, I can peel the layers and really get to like, yo, this is what's going on, right? Now I have these other men that can be like, yo, okay, man, to support me and hear me. Now I'm able to come to a conclusion on my own, or come to a space where it's like, okay, I see what's happening now. I see how I've contributed to this. If I'm in a therapist and they're just like, okay, tell me about this, I'm rehashing my stuff rather than addressing it and moving through it. You follow what I'm saying? So it's like, I think it's something like being in this space with us. We're able to see the humanity in each other because we are each other, man. This gives us a space to work things through.
Yeah. And Paul, let me throw this out too, for those who are watching and engaging in this conversation. There's no such thing as a quick fix.
True words.
And there are many paths up this mountain called transformation. So imagine that there's this mountain, and where we want to go is we want to get to the top of this mountain. Now, some people may go up this side of the mountain. Some people may go up that side of the mountain. Some people will have different tools that they use to climb the mountain. But ultimately, we all want to get to the top of the mountain. It's our responsibility to figure out what path we're supposed to take up the mountain. It could be therapy. It could be MKP. I did some work with a guy named John Bradshaw. Inner child work. Transformative. I mean, it
parts work. Yep.
Okay. So there's a lot of different ways to get there, but ultimately what we want to do is get to the mountain top. Okay. For men of color, there's been so many obstacles to get up to that mountaintop. We just kind of said, well, maybe we can't do that. But our goal, I believe, is that for those of us who are courageous enough to get to the mountaintop, do their healing work, our responsibility is to come back down, grab somebody, and help them up the mountain.
Speaking, coach.
And that's what BKC is about. We're not perfect, but we each have climbed up this mountain called transformation, healing. But every time I come back down and grab somebody and come back up, guess what? I continue my healing. I continue my growth. And I believe it's an ongoing process. It's up and down. We're going up and down. But every time I go down and come back up, I'm a little better. Now, some people might use the term enlightenment. You know, we want to get to the top of the mountain to be enlightened. But it's not just about enlightenment. There's that service piece. That service piece that says, I have a responsibility to help somebody else up the mountain. So that's why I write. That's why I speak. That's why I'm part of BKC, because it is my responsibility. I choose to have the responsibility to help another man come up that mountain.
Bless up, coach. Thank you, man. Would you say that's the benefits? Like, bless up to Ralph Sims for this comment. This is men's SWV, men's substance, wisdom, vitality. Bless up, bro. Yo, Dr. Sims, man, with the goody goods on a ready rag, man. Bless up to you, gang. Listen, you know, this was a great question. Great asked. How do we market the benefits of taking this journey?
That's a good one, bro. And I'm going to keep it short, man. The way that I do it is I just walk the walk and talk the talk, bro. And I'll be honest with you, what tends to happen is when I'm around men, women, sometimes even children, they always ask me, where did you get that from? Or how did you think about it in that way, right? And it gives me an opportunity to share with them. So I sit in this men's group and I tell them whatever's true for me at the moment, right? So that personal invitation, that walking the walk so that a man can see that or a person can see that and say, dang, I really want more of that. You know, to me, that's how we market it. Now, I know P and Coach going to tell you about all the different ways we could market it on a grand scale. But that personal piece, bro, for men's work is super, super important for me.
Bless up, man, Shay. I mean, I think that's the answer right there. Be it, man. Be the work. I'm with you, man. Coach, you got something?
Yeah, man, because here's the thing. I wrote my first book in 1995, specifically for Black men. The title of the book was Brothers, Are You Listening? A Success Guide for the 90s. And in that book, talking about
Wow.
emotions and healing and therapy and all of that. Several times while doing radio interviews, I was attacked by Black men who accused me of trying to be white because I was talking about therapy and emotions. Okay, so to Gray, you said, how do we market the benefits of taking the journey? Jermaine nailed it. First of all, we got to do our work and then share our experience with other men and see if they want some of that. if they want some of that. But from a marketing perspective, it is extremely difficult to get Black folks collectively talking about this kind of work. Why is that so? Because we live in a culture that thrives on negativity, pessimism, and cynicism, first of all. Yeah. But when it comes to Black folk, I know that I have been vilified because of my optimism. Black people accusing me of not understanding the struggle because I'm so optimistic. And so when I'm out here promoting this idea of it's possible for Black men to create extraordinary lives, I get a lot of pushback from Black people saying I'm denying that racism exists. And, I get all of that. So again, I think, Jermaine, you nailed it. The only way, well, not the only way, but the best way we can market this work is by sharing our stories.
Yes.
Let me say one more thing to that too, man. So the phrase I use is, I am only where I'm at when I'm there, right? I'm only there when I'm there, right? And I know that sounds real nutty, but I try to remind myself of that all the time. And I'm going to tell you something really quickly. If somebody would have said to me 15 years ago, hey, Jermaine, I want you to sit in this group of men, Black men, and talk about your feelings and get really vulnerable about what's going on. Bro, I would have told you out your mind. There's no way I'm doing that, right? But let me tell you what the thing is, right? And there's an author and a poet named Robert Bly. And what he says in his book, Iron John, is that all men come through enlightenment. And this is that word Coach was saying, you could interchange it however you want to think about it. But all men come into enlightenment through trauma, right? And that's really, really deep because, for thousands of years, men have had to go through initiations to become a man, right? It didn't happen naturally. And for women, it's different because just by the nature of being a woman, the change of life, being a mother, carrying children in the womb, they are naturally initiated into motherhood really easy, right? And that's the reason why most people say, or I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but women mature way faster than men, right? Some of us might have even experienced something like that, right? And the reason why is because men, since the Western world kind of took over everything, did away with initiations. So boys don't know how to be men anymore, right? The reason why I say that is because it takes a village, particularly men, to raise men, right? And so when we get into the weeds of talking about armor, right? What's a man of substance? We did that last week. When we talk about all these things, we have to keep in mind that in order for me as a boy to become a man, right, in this new world, because we no longer take boys and initiate them, it has to come to me through some trauma, right? Which is what Coach was saying earlier, being so broken that I'm either going to do the work or I'm just going to die, right? And even P said a little bit earlier, outgrowing or growing out of the armor, right? Where it's almost stifling me in my growth. That's exactly why. Because at some point, we have to get to a place where the immature boy turns into the mature man. I know I went off a little bit on that, but
I loved it. It needed to be said, man. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. You guys are seeing this, man, Andrew Mann's, man, bro, man, Jermaine, that was powerful. Andrew Mann, sadly, far too many folk are educationally, socially, and culturally conditioned to accept and drink from the well of mediocrity. We have been robbed of our common sense and critical thinking. Ooh, child. Man. Yeah, man. Andrew Mann.
Bro, that's absolutely right, bro. And I'm going to tell you, going from immature to mature, bro, a lot of that, we got to hit that head on, man. So, yeah, bless up for that, bro.
Yeah. So, question, right? Because, so this brings up something. So, the armor really is stifling growth. It's strangling growth, right? And when you say that, we get to address that immature to mature. It's a task. I really think it really is about really dropping the armor, because there's something childlike, something pure, something sacred. Coach mentioned the sacred wound. There's something sacred there that gets to be connected to. Otherwise, how do we go into a mature masculine? What it's I'm just spitballing, just chopping stuff up in my head and speaking out loud. But I think it's man, it's really wild, man. And then like reading this from Andrew, it's like I brought up this photo that it reminds me of, right? Because hold on, I'm gonna present this so you guys see what I'm looking at. Yeah, window. So when I look at, can you guys see this here?
Yeah.
When I look at this, right, I see like this armor's layered. And I see this as the educational armor that we've put on, the social, the cultural armor that we put on. And it's like almost like when I look at this cat, man, it looks like this armor is him. It's not even something he could take off.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the work, man. It's like slowly one thing at a time, maybe taking off these rusty ass gloves. So you got your hands free. You could touch something, you could like connect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at this helmet. You know what I'm saying, bro? It's like, this is the stuff, man, that's happening in our culture.
You hitting it, bro. You hitting it. It's, it goes back to that unconscious way that I put the armor back on myself in those moments of vulnerability. You know what I mean? The key thing you said there is this armor is part of him. He probably doesn't even know it's on him.
Word.
Right? That's most of us, bro. That's what Coach was talking about. That shadow piece of me that I hide, repress, and deny. The reason it's a shadow is because it's behind me, bro. I can't see it. Yeah. I have to do intentional personal growth work to actually turn around, see it, bring it in front of me and go, hey, bro, what have you been doing back there? Yeah. All this time, right?
Yeah.
What are you protecting? When did you come around? When did you start noticing me and feeling like you had to protect me, right? And then with my grown-up self, bro, my new warrior, my enlightened self, my mature self, I could take a really good look at it and go, is this appropriate for my life today, bro? And an analogy I like to use around that is, 100 years ago, we were using candles to light up your house, bro. Right? It doesn't mean that today the candle, you don't need it no more, throw it away, nobody ever produce it, right? But it is absolutely not appropriate to light your house right now, right? So the awareness around, man, I've been carrying these candles trying to light this room. Let me take a look at this and see what I need to do to bring this more up to speed, right? So maybe this armor is all rusty. I might still even need armor, bro. And that's the key I want people to know. We're not saying get rid of your armor and just throw it away and don't worry about it. No.
Thank you.
I'm asking men to do when they step on that carpet is take a look at the armor you built from the time you were 6, 7, 8 years old. Take a look at it, bro, right? Inspect it.
Yeah.
Go deeper with it. If it's serving your greater purpose today, absolutely keep it, man. Keep it.
Yeah.
Live your life to the fullest. But if it's not serving you, if it's not keeping you on mission, if it's not a benefit to you, your family, your community, or the world, rethink it, bro.
Yeah.
Right? We can all
Yep.
do that.
All right, let me throw this analogy out for you. We got any Star Trek fans in the house? Star Trek, go ahead. Start the Trekkies in the house. Okay, so we got the USS Enterprise, right? The ship. You know USS Enterprise?
Yep.
You got the Klingon ship, right? So let's just imagine that we're the USS Enterprise, and we got the Klingons. Well, the Klingons start shooting at us in our USS Enterprise. What do? We put up the force field, put up the shield, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's the shield's job? Is to protect us from the hurt that's coming at us, right? Now, in order to keep those shields up, it takes a lot of energy. It drains the resources, but you got to keep the shield up to keep yourself protected, right?
Yeah.
Now, the Klingons shooting at us. We got our shields up. And let's just say this, the Klingons go, damn, I can't get through those shields. The Klingon goes away. We don't need the shields no more because the Klingons are gone. But guess what? A lot of us keep those shields up because we've been hurt. So we got the shields up, but there's no threat. And it's draining. It takes a lot of energy to keep that armor on. It takes a lot of effort to hide behind those shields and that armor. And so healing is allowing ourselves to put the shields down when we don't need them. But when the threat's coming, we can always put the shields back up. But too many times we keep the shields up even when there's not a threat. Mm-hmm. So it's really about learning when to put the shields up and when to let them down.
Yo, Ralph Sims just got something good in here. Gray Jones just redid it. Yo, the armor is defense. Men's work is offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, yeah, speak to that, bro, because that hit on a whole nother note right there.
Boom. Boom. Yo, Ralph Sims, we gotta get Ralph Sims up on this piece, man. Yo, Ralph, man, we have to get you up here next week, bruv. Sit in here, man, because that right there is, man. Wow, bro. Wow, man. But guys, any comments to that? Because I know we're coming up, we're past the hour right now. But dang, man, this right here, man, yeah, man. I'm glad we talked about this, chopped it up, man. This may be something we come back to and talk some more of the Romulans. Now you got this Star Trek going, Coach. Now people talking, man, live long and prosper, Romulans and whatnot. Greg Jones had a question. Can we find a way to quantify the amount of energy used to keep the energy on or the armor on?
But here's the thing. I don't know if you can quantify it, but you'll know when you're expending the energy by how you feel. When I feel at peace, when I feel calm, I'm not expending a lot of energy. When I'm stressed, when I'm angry, that's when I know that I'm expending a lot of energy. So that's the way to know what's happening. It's about how you feel. It's the energy inside of you. And that's how you can gauge where you are.
Yeah, and that's that self-awareness piece too, bro, is, pay attention to your body, right?
True.
Like there's certain situations I'm in where I can feel the energy, like, oh man, like I got to get out of here. Like, and most people experience this at work, like in the workplace. is like they glad when they got to leave to go home, because the energy it takes to keep them shields intact so that you can keep your job, you don't have to piss off your boss. That's a lot of energy, bro. But just notice those things in your body. You know, most of the time what happens to me is I just chalk it up as what I got to do. You know, this is part of my personality. I just, I got to do that. But really on a lower level, bro, like when I dig a little bit deeper, I'm really using a lot of energy to keep that mask or keep that armor up while I'm in that situation. And I'm curious, bro, if over the next week, maybe 2 weeks, if you could do some real intentional self-awareness and just notice the places you at, or the people you're in communication with or in an experience with, where you can feel that energy draw, right? That'll be a nice little exercise, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question, man.
Yeah, great question, Gray. Yeah, he continued on. He said most men don't know they're using energy to keep the armor on. And it's true, Jermaine. You hit on a great point, man. Because if you think about something, when men a lot of times will go to work and then they come home and then they're vegging out. I'm gonna speak for myself from experience. A lot of times it's like because it was a lot of energy holding that mass together when I was like, maybe I didn't want to be there, or maybe it was like it was extra effort to stop myself from telling somebody off, or like holding myself from really speaking the truth because like I got fear to lose my job or something like that. All that stuff is weight.
Yeah. Yeah. And for men of color, bro, I'm gonna tell you one place that shows up for me big time. When I get pulled over from the police.
Oh, bro.
Yo, let me tell you something, bro. I got probably all my mask and my armor on at the same time, and I'm 100% shields to 1,000 for that whole 20 minutes, whatever long it takes for them to do that. I'm on full mode armor, everything going on, right? And I noticed that because when I'm getting pulled over, there's so many stories that I've got around what is the potential to happen to me during that I'm full on, bro. So it's that kind of thing that we want to look out for, right? And some of this stuff we can't change, bro, but it really does help on our journey when we can become aware of enough of when we're in those kind of situations. Because something that you might notice is some of those situations you can choose to not even be in and save some of that energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But there's also the science behind the stress and the energy.
What?
Here's the thing. We've all heard of the fight or flight mode, right?
Absolutely.
When something's threatening us, we go into fight or flight or freeze. But fight or flight is the energy that the adrenaline starts to rise so that we can protect ourselves from whatever the threat might be. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are stuck in that fight or flight response, even though there's no threat. And what happens is that's the source of a lot of disease, a lot of dis-ease, because they're using all this energy to keep these guards up, even when there's no threat. But the body physiologically is saying, protect, protect, protect. It's creating adrenaline and stuff in your body to protect you that you don't even need.
Right.
But it causes dis-ease in the body. So that's why it's so important for us, especially as men of color, to regulate, be aware of the energy that we feel, to know if we need to shut that off. And that's why I'm a huge proponent of meditation, to allow you to slow down your breathing, become aware of what you're thinking. What you're thinking is what's creating a lot of the energy that you're putting out there. So it's important for us to self-regulate and be aware of the energy we feel in our bodies, because it's causing us to get sick in a lot of cases.
Brother. I think, you know what, man, like as I'm saying this, especially this Mental Health Awareness Month, I think it's going to be key for us to start talking about how we manage our energy, like energy regulation with wearing the mask and armor, man. Because like, listen, this right here is serious conversation. What we're bringing up right now, because listen, this is something we're all doing, right? So if I get better and I get mentally stronger, I get emotionally stronger, being able to, and also it's I sense it's like a emotional and mental resilience and regulation, because we talk about being able to take off the armor, allow ourselves to heal and get vulnerable, power up almost in an essence, so that when we got to wear that armor, we can go out. And then also I'm hearing is like when we're wearing the armor, it's also being aware of what kind of energy is taking from us as a whole. What kind of energy is it draining us of? How are we managing that? So man, listen, man, this is potent. Like, share, subscribe. If you found this conversation valuable, like it, leave a comment, share with your friends. You think this conversation was like, you men that have joined us, thank you, thank you, thank you. Share with the women in your life, share with your brothers, your friends, like your fathers, because these are conversations, especially about armor, and share with other men of color. Like, these are things that's going on for us right now that few people are talking about. And we want to bring this to the surface here. We're bringing this here to the surface in the BKC because we want to see you thrive. And part of you thriving is learning how you manage your energy and being aware of what's blocking it, what's strangling it. That's what it is, man. So listen, also, man, look, you know what too? We got calls. Go to brotherhoodofkings.com. Brotherhoodofkings.com. All right. When you go on to brotherhoodofkings.com, you're gonna see some real funky, fresh stuff. First of all, you're gonna see this nice website with these other brothers that are on here. Okay. And then when you go on, you're gonna be able to see some of the things that we're doing out here in the community. We have a newsletter that goes out every week that highlights and gives weekly tips about how you can move and maneuver through life. So when you go onto the site, put in your email address, your first name, and subscribe, and you'll be on the list. So you get an email every week. You want to come check out the calls on Saturdays? Great. We got space for you. Just go onto the site. You can click on access Zoom call here on Saturdays. It's going to bring you right into the call. Okay. Also, we have a book out right now. If you're like, listen, man, I want to get some information. This is a book that's co-written by all three of us. We've all put our heart and soul into this because we care about you. We care about men of color and living a life of embodying a life of authentic masculinity. And then guess what, man? We got a summit out here on YouTube. So you want to register for the summit, you can get videos of some of the other men in Brotherhood of Kings Collective that have shared their expertise. And it's ranging from things about fatherhood, finances, language, community. What else we got now? I know I'm missing some, but we got a lot of valuable topics in here. Click on register. Spirituality, man. Look, man.
Health.
I mean, even career. What was the other one, Coach?
Health and finances.
Oh, health and finances. Come on, man. Come on now. And then also, like, be on the lookout because we're going to be having new warrior training adventures for men of color. Okay? Stay tuned, man. This is all on the site. And guess what else, man? You know we got to have apparel. Come on now. I know where I'm in New Jersey, it's getting cold. So best believe I got my hoodie on deck, son. Come on now. Let's go. All right? So listen, man, we care about you, man. We care about what's happening for you. We want you to care about yourself. So we are here to provide different insight so you can learn what authentic masculinity means for you. It means something different for me. It means something different for Coach. It means something different for Jermaine. And guess what? We have space where we get to work this out and support each other in doing that. So get on the good foot. I want to finish off with a couple of comments we have here. So hold on, let's take this off of share. Stop screen share. I'm realizing my armor is actually focusing on the challenge of the journey of other men. Ooh, wow. I get to stay outside of myself. Thank you, Kings, for this developing and maintaining this forum. Bless up, Gray. Thank you for being here, brother. Thank you. Ralph Sims. Thank you, Kings. You all are super terrific, man. Spotted you got it, Dr. Sims. And thank you. That's right, man. A couple of things too from here, like Gray Jones was agreeing with you, Jermaine. Like the police encounter, weight, energy stress is so relatable that may be the way in our community. Agreed. I think a lot of times when we have these fallout with police, it's like, yo, we've been holding on to armor so long that it's like we combust in those situations because we have no idea how to handle it. And a lot of times we end up getting killed. We can do different.
Yeah.
Man,
and real quick, Paul. Gray Jones, I'm not sure who you are, Gray. I just want to shout out to you, bro, for engaging, man, really engaging in this conversation. We appreciate you, man. We love the input. And once again, when I see young men like yourself engaging in these conversations, it gives me hope and optimism for the future. So make sure you stay engaged, share this with your friends. And again, continue to contribute, man, because you are contributing to this conversation. We appreciate you.
True words. I was trying to plug in before I get shut down. So, man, any last comments before we wrap up, man?
Well, for me, as always, be optimistic. Don't buy the BS what the media is saying about black men being in an endangered species. And black men are thriving. You may not see it. We are thriving. Are there challenges? Absolutely. But these conversations are actually, I believe, concrete solutions to a lot of the challenges we as black men face. And so know that this is a resource specifically for the brothers who are ready to go on this journey of transformation. And we don't claim to have all the answers. We're not experts, although we've written books and do all that. No, we're here to support you climb up this mountain of transformation. That's what we're here for. So join us.
Everything Coach said. I'm out.
Bless up. And I gotta say, Coach, every time you say that, with like, yo, man, we're thriving, I think of that title you had, and I think about Public Enemy. Don't believe the hype is a sequel. As an equal, can I get this through to you? My 98 booming with a trunk of funk. You didn't know I did that, huh? You a PE, boy.
There you go.
That's black men are thriving, man. Yep. And you're part of it, man. Men of color thriving right now, and you're part of it. Stay connected to BKC. Thank you, everybody. Peace. We are out.